I call this meeting of the Schertz-Cibolo-Universal City Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The time is 6 o'clock. Roll call, please.
All board members are present except for Mr. Westbrook and Mr. Finley.
Yes, President Westbrook is actually attending another board meeting tonight for his TASB duties and actually giving an award out to a board member tonight. And sadly, they meet on the same night that we do, so he had to miss this one. And Mr. Finley already let us know he'll be a little late tonight. We're going to pass off to do our recognition of our student representatives that will be leading our Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, and I'll introduce the two students, and you can remain seated until the principals tell us a little bit about the students, and then we'll ask everybody to stand for the pledge. But tonight, we're proud to have Nathaniel Nino, a fourth grader from Rose Garden Elementary School. He's accompanied by his principal, Miss Ward, and Madison Bauman, an eighth grader from Corbett Junior High School, accompanied by her principal, Mr. Ray. So we're going to learn a little bit about the students, and then at the appropriate time, we'll ask everybody to rise for the pledge.
Good evening, board members, Vice President Dreisbeck, and Dr. Gibson, our superintendent. I'm Cindy Ward, and I am the principal at Rose Garden Elementary, and I wanted to introduce you tonight to Nathaniel Nino. He's a fourth grader at Rose Garden. He epitomizes all the traits of an SCUCISD graduate, but I chose him because of his dynamic leadership. Not only is Nathaniel part of our safety patrol at Rose Garden, he's also part of the robotics club. He loves math, it's his favorite subject, but he also likes playing games, especially with his little brother. Tonight I'd like to recognize his parents, Joshua and Edith Nino. Would you please stand? Thank you. This is Nathaniel, and he's going to be leading us tonight in our pledge.
Good evening, members of the board, Vice President Dreisbeck and Superintendent Dr. Gibson. I'm Rashad Ram, principal at Corbett Junior High. I would like to introduce you to our student, Madison Bauman, who is in 8th grade. She's an AB Honor Roll student at Corbett. She's also part of our volleyball team at Corbett Junior High. Her favorite subject is journalism. She enjoys volunteering at the animal shelter in her spare time. She also plays softball, which she has after this. And she also likes to help her mother around the house in her free time when she's not doing anything with school or with softball. She's joined by her mom, Missy Bauman. She's in the back here. Madison will be leading us along with Nathaniel on our Pledge of Allegiance today.
All right, please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank y'all very much for doing that and leading us. And Ms. Ward knows that math is my favorite subject as well, so that's awesome. Okay, next, we just want to welcome everybody here. Again, Mr. Westbrook, sorry that he couldn't make it tonight, but I know we have some in the crowd that are here for student recognition, and we just really appreciate you guys coming. And we meet every month at this time, usually that on a Tuesday night. And so anytime that you can make it, we appreciate it. It's also live streamed, and you can go back and watch previous ones as well. So we encourage any of our parents and community members to do that. We're going to have the Vice President's resuscitation of the district mission, vision, values, and priorities. And so our mission is SCUCISD is a diverse community founded in trust and transparency, commits to empower all students to fulfill lifelong potential through inspiring learning experiences. Our vision is to inspire, innovate, and excel. Our values are leadership, character, commitment, service, and learning. And our priorities, we have 4. All graduates will be college and career and are military ready. Priority 2 is high-performing and engaged workforce. Priority 3 is highly satisfied students, parents, and community. And priority 4 is efficient district and campus operations. We'll now go into the belief statements.
We believe all students have the capacity to learn and excel. We believe a safe, secure, and supportive environment is paramount to learning.
We believe living our core values of leadership, character, commitment, service, and learning. We believe engaging, interactive, and authentic teaching creates empowered, inspired learners prepared for our changing world.
We believe technology is a relevant tool that enhances learning in and beyond the classroom. We believe in a professional learning community, PLC, that fosters collaboration for continuous improvement. We believe transparent, clear, and timely communication among all is critical to success.
We believe measures of success go beyond standardized testing, and we believe that public education is defined by the local community with limited state involvement.
Thank you, trustees, for reading those. And next, we're going to have our recognition of our student representatives for the month of November.
Thank you, Vice President Dreisbach and trustees and staff and guests. Tonight, we have Kaylin Vale, a 12th grader from Clemens High School, and Ashley Bewley, a 12th grader from Steele High School. And as they make their way to the podium to meet their administrators to introduce them, I want to add a little bit to our typical comments. And so in our board book, we have an item where we talk about each agenda item aligning to the district strategic plan and what its alignment is. And what we'll do moving forward is make sure that everybody in the room and our staff are aware that a big part of what we do with this portion of the board meeting is recognize these graduates or these students as we work towards the traits of a graduate. So I'm just going to read our traits of a graduate as we introduce them, because these 2 young ladies, as is the case tonight, embody all of these traits. Dynamic leaders help and support others by leading by example with integrity and taking initiative willingly. Self-motivated, possess and practice grit and perseverance through dedication and application of real-world skills. Skilled communicator, communicate with transparency and confidence tailored to the audience. Service-oriented, demonstrating selfless citizenship and a sense of community through volunteering by serving others. And future-ready, utilizing resilience and critical thinking skills to adapt and be prepared for changes in the real world. So with that, we're going to ask, I believe Ms. Simmons is here to introduce, nope, is that right? Yep, Ms. Simmons is here to introduce the first student.
Good evening. Good evening, Dr. Gibson, Vice President Dreisbach, and members of the board. I would like to recognize and introduce Ms. Ashley Bewley, our student representative for DECA for Steele High School. I would also like to recognize her DECA sponsor, Ms. Crystal Pounds. Ashley Bewley is the VP of Leadership for Steele DECA. She helps guide the DECA team. She is in charge of the officers knowing the goals and agenda of the chapter. Ashley also elects leaders to certain events so that they are properly conducted, all of which is to ensure the Steele DECA chapter stays on the path to ICDC or Nationals in Orlando, Florida. Ashley has been in the SCUCISD since her kindergarten year at Wiederstein Elementary School. This district has done many things for her, including teaching her a love for math. In the 5th grade at Jordan, getting her first ever leadership position as Vice President of NJHS at Dobie Junior High School, and preparing her for college at Steele. Her parents are Victoria and Lee Bewley, and she couldn't ask for a better set of parents to love her and help her grow into the leader she is today. From her freshman to junior year, she played softball for our Steele Lady Knights softball team, but decided to focus her time towards something she could put all into her senior year, which is DECA. Not only is she a part of DECA, but also Key Club, Student Council, National Honor Society, and she is also the president of the senior class. She holds other leadership positions as a new student liaison for Student Council and as secretary for the National Honor Society. She has competed in DECA since her freshman year and has advanced to state every single year. After high school, she plans to attend the United States Naval Academy and major in economics. Ashley is planning on pursuing a path in business after her military career, and she is excited for what her future has planned. Miss Ashley Bewley.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons. Good evening, Dr. Gibson, Vice President Dreisbach, and members of the board, and thank you for this opportunity to talk in front of y'all about the Steele DECA chapter. My name is Ashley Bewley, and I'm a senior at Steele High School. As a leader in many clubs and of my class, I have learned the true value of guiding others to success. I thrive on seeing those I have led become victorious. I thrive on helping others to a common goal. I thrive on aiding those in need. As a United States Naval Academy graduate, I plan to continue my lifelong goal of leading and helping others as a naval officer. The Steele organizations I am a part of have given me a gift of leadership attributes that I am immensely thankful for and will use for the rest of my life. I am proud to say that I attend Steele High School. It welcomes students and challenges us to reach the Steele standard for success, and that is what DECA accomplishes each year. In the past years, we have had immense success bringing our chapter members to the State Career Development Conference competition. Our district success rate is 92% in advancing to state competition. Last year, 4 other students and I were able to travel to Atlanta, Georgia for the International Career Development Conference, ICDC, to learn how to make our DECA chapter more successful. We met hundreds of other DECA chapters, learned their techniques, met entrepreneurs, and inherited the key elements of a successful competitive DECA chapter. So far this year, we have upheld to the higher standards we have set for ourselves and have treated our Steele DECA chapter with more determination than any other year before. We plan to treat DECA like a sport. We plan to practice and train weekly for DECA season so that we can make it to playoffs in Orlando, Florida for ICDC. Our Steele DECA chapter will be more competitive than any other year before. Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Gibson, Vice President Dreisbach, and members of the board. It is my privilege to introduce to you our Samuel Clemens High School Student of the Month, Ms. Kaylin Vale, representing journalism. Kaylin is accompanied this evening by her mom, Melanie Vale. Ms. Brittany Hernandez, journalism sponsor, is also in attendance this evening. Originally, Kaylin did not want to do journalism when she was put into the class back in 7th grade at Dobie. However, she quickly learned that she might be able to foster a newfound profession when she learned the power of the First Amendment, how to interview for writing articles, design and take photographs for the ultimate of presentation via yearbook and newspaper. 6 years later, her self-motivation has earned her the status of editor-in-chief of the Stampede's 60th volume. Kaylin is accomplishing all of this while balancing her IB studies, being a member of the Bells dance team, and working as a dynamic leader as one of our PE pals. She plans to attend college after graduation and study occupational therapy. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Kaylin Vale.
Good evening, Dr. Gibson, Vice President Dreisbach, and members of the board. Thank you for this opportunity to speak about the journalism program as a student representative. I have been a part of the Clemens Yearbook staff, the Stampede, for all 4 years of my high school experience. While journalism has taught me many things such as design, typography, photography, and writing, it's taught me much more in the subtlest of ways. Walking in as a freshman, I was a quiet, keep-to-herself kind of girl. I talked to the rest of the staff minimally, did my work, left the class, not to do any yearbook work again until the next day in 5th period. Sophomore year, I unexpectedly took on the role of photo editor, overcoming many unexpected bumps along the way, and slowly became less shy. Junior year, as design editor, was one of my best. I was part of the staff with two of my best friends who knew I wasn't the shy, quiet girl that I came off to be. I learned a lot about leadership and saw the things that I needed to improve upon myself in order to become editor-in-chief for my senior year. Now, being editor-in-chief, I've learned a lot about being a leader, communicating with the editors and staff and my advisor, leading by example and adapting to new changes quickly and efficiently. I've spent many hours outside of class working on the book and understand dedication and how a one-period class isn't necessarily one period's work. Recently, some of the editors went to a yearbook convention in San Antonio. We were asked to write down on a note card something that yearbook has done for us, we've learned from the class, or we love about the class. We came up with a list of things that had things such as a second family and food, but one struck me more than others, pushed me out of my comfort zone. Freshman year, I was quiet, not a people person. I'm still not the most extroverted person you'll meet, but I'm definitely learning and improving, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters. I can look back on my years of journalism and see all that it's taught me. Without yearbook, I wouldn't have learned the way that I did how to be an effective leader, how to talk to classmates or teach younger staff members. I wouldn't have learned about self-motivation or dedication or prioritizing in a way that made so much sense to me. In spite of computers 10 years out of warranty, I've learned things that consider valuable life skills, and I can only imagine what the future generations will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley and Caitlin. Great job. Next, we're going to recognize our district partners and collaborators. As part of the SCUC Community Partnership, we would like to acknowledge our numerous key partners and collaborators who are active contributors in helping the district achieve its mission and goals. Tonight, we salute partners who help make the Schertz-Cibolo-Universal City ISD a destination school district. From the City of Selma, we welcome the Honorable Tom Daly, who serves as mayor. The City of Selma serves as a strategic partner with SCUC, assisting the school district with growth planning. Our school district shares a long and rich relationship with the city. Please welcome the mayor, Mr. Daly.
Thank you, Dr. Gibson, school board members. Really appreciate this opportunity. Sorry, Mr. Westbrook isn't here. He's the one who asked me to do this. Caitlin, Ashley, you guys are the bomb. I wish I knew what I was going to be when I grew up like you guys are. It's fantastic. Going into that, I got a story about 2010. There was a new mayor elected that year, and a new superintendent was brought in. And this new mayor, knocking on doors, looking at all the things that were happening, was watching a wave come down 35. Okay, and a lot of people were saying, my staff who was new, saying you're crazy, you're out of your mind, this and that. But then they started catching on. And I decided to come in front of this board member, and I'm like, let you go, wow. I'm going to let you know, Selma, it's going to explode. Be ready, please be ready. And I think a lot of you leaned over to Dr. Gibson and said, yeah, he's out of his mind, just take him out to lunch. Don't worry about it, he's just a new mayor, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, let me tell you something, okay? It's exploded, okay? The numbers are staggering. All right, we've gone from 3,000 people to 14,000 people in 8 years. We've gone from 3,000 houses to 6,000 houses. Second in young professionals, second in young couples. Medium income, I wish Trader Joe's would have listened to me 5 years ago, 60,000 to 85,000. Okay, it's just incredible. All right, it's an amazing concept to see what we've brought, over the last 6 years. Now, on top of that, we're able to brag about the lowest tax from the I-35 corridor, from Oklahoma down to Mexico at 20 cents per tax dollars, which is incredible. We have the lowest garbage rate in the United States. Living in Selma, Guadalupe County compared to, Cibolo-Guadalupe County saves you $400 alone, just in living there alone. It's incredible. All right? I'm very proud of all this stuff. I'm proud to let you know that we brought probably 1,000 new houses into Guadalupe County within the last. We have 200 businesses now in Guadalupe County and growing to the extent where I'm saying, oh my God, okay. I once said, I had a member of the Schertz Council tell me that Schertz was the brains of the Northeast Partnership. I told him we were the heart. Okay? The way Selma goes is the way everything else goes around here. We're bringing to your city the first Mercedes-Benz of Selma is coming, okay? We're bringing buyer boys, all great jobs that are bringing great pay, that's bringing able to shop in the area. It's never ending, it's exciting, okay? With that, we have things that will be happening. The future still is looking down the road 10 years like we did 8 years ago, all right? We're possibly bringing an area behind the Bluebonnet Palace, which is going to be a city center, okay, where you could come down, you're going to bring business for 200-300 more businesses into Guadalupe County with people living on top to take care of the mom and pop stores, okay? It's going to be like Fredericksburg. It's going to be incredible. That's what we're looking at. Selma doesn't stop. I was just up at the TML, and I was telling everyone, I go, 5 years from now, you're going to be sitting down, you're going to be talking at the table, you say, should we go to Disney, Grand Canyon, or Selma? And Disney's going to be really mad at me, I'll tell you that. I'm not kidding around, all right? Appreciate it. One last story I want to tell you guys, it's pretty simple to end this story, is that I had a young lady come up to me. She was Miss Teen Texas, and she asked if she could have a conversation with me. So we sat down, and she goes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to learn about politics. I go, well, young lady, you came to the wrong place. I'm not a politician. I am the ambassador of my city. Okay, and that's what I am. I am an ambassador of Selma. I go out there and I talk about my city, and I tell people you should live there, and it's a great place. You got great school districts, and everything is going on. When I have an Audi dealership and I have a Mercedes-Benz dealership, start teaching the kids how to be mechanics. My goodness, how much money that's going to be, all right? So it's incredible. And the young lady, I found out later on, to end the story, is she lived in Cibolo, she lived in Schertz, and now she lives in Selma. She finally got the porridge right. That's all I got to say. I appreciate you guys asking me to come out tonight. I hope you guys have any questions. I'm the guy who would stay here for an hour and answer them to you. Know that. I love my city so much. It's a great opportunity to come out here. I wish you guys, if you need me to come out here any other time, tell you what's going on, or have a meeting, we're booming. We're not stopping. 2 by 3 mile city, and we just keep growing. Okay? So I'm really proud to be the mayor there. I'm really proud that what we thought about 8 years ago really came true. And we are ready for it. And you guys are doing a great job here on the school board. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. We have a second strategic partner, and this evening we're also honored to welcome Alan Milan, who serves as one of the Watchdog Dads at Watts Elementary School. Watchdogs is an SCUC collaborator, and it stands for Dads of Great Students. And it is one of the nation's largest and most respected school-based family and community engagement organizations in the country. In fact, our fellow trustee, Mr. Pivito, serves as a watchdog on the campus of Green Valley Elementary School. Please welcome Mr. Milan.
Good evening, Superintendent, Vice President, and boards. My name is Alan Mian, and Watchdogs has been established since 1998 and more than 6,400 schools nationwide. The major impact is impacting the student itself, being a positive role model as a father figure to millions of students nationwide. It can be grandfathers, uncles, stepfathers, and just a male role model. I've been doing Watchdogs for 3 years, and I really enjoy it every time I go. Actually, I signed up today to go next month. Every time you go in to Watchdogs, they have actually an agenda. The administrator or the principal have to approve the agenda. By then, you go to each class and you mentor and encourage each student by either reading, math, or whatever the teacher needs to be there. Ask my son, who's in Watts Elementary, what are the 2 reasons why you like Dad to go? He said, 1, it's fun when you're there, and 2nd, it's safe. I feel safe. So to me, being Watchdog is having second set of eyes there on campus as well. Again, I thank you for having the time here. I appreciate it. Thank you again. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Milan. Thank you for volunteering at our schools. Thank you very much. Next, we're going to have our recognition of staff and students. First is going to be our principal representatives by Ms. Goldhorn and Mr. Limley.
Good evening, members of the board, Vice President Dreisbeck, and Superintendent Dr. Gibson. As Director of Elementary Education Services, I would like to introduce to you our elementary principal who is attending this month's board meeting. Her name is Cindy Ward. Cindy, would you please come forward? Cindy Ward is the principal at Rose Garden Elementary. She has served 24 years in education and 7 years in SCUC. A fun fact about Mrs. Ward is that she and her husband have 5 kids and 1 grandchild on the way. I'd like to introduce to you Mrs. Cindy Ward.
Good evening, members of the board, Vice President Dreisbeck, and Superintendent Dr. Gibson. I'm Brett Limley, and I'm the Director of Secondary Education Services, and I would like to introduce to you our secondary principal who is attending this month's meeting, Mr. Rashad Ray. Mr. Ray. Mr. Ray is the principal at Corbett Junior High. He's been 13 years in education, and this is his first year in SCUC ISD. He's doing a great job. A fun fact about Mr. Ray is that he loves kids and he loves classic cars. If you've ever seen what he drives, then you got a good idea about that. So anyway, I'd like to introduce you guys to Mr. Ray.
Now we'll have recognition of our student achievements presented by Dr. Limley.
Hello again. Tonight we're here to recognize SCUC ISD students who have earned outstanding academic distinction by making a high score on the preliminary SAT, National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, or the PSAT, MNSQT. These tests measure critical reading ability, mathematics problem-solving ability, and writing ability rather than existing knowledge. The National Merit Scholarship Program was established in 1952 to recognize students from all over the country. Approximately 1.6 million juniors and 22,000 high schools participate in the competition. The students we present tonight were selected from the highest achievers across the nation, exemplifying self-motivation and readiness for the future, 2 of those traits of a graduate that we read about earlier today. Approximately 34,000 commended scholars and 16,000 semifinalists are named each year out of the 1.6 million graduating seniors from across the nation. All semifinalists are eligible to advance to the final round and be considered for one of the 7,500 scholarships, totaling approximately $32 million. The National Merit finalists will be announced this spring. So I would like to say to our students, parents, and friends tonight, thank you for joining us to honor our academic excellence and our students. And to our students tonight, congratulations on your accomplishments and best of lucks on your bright future. As I call your name, please come up to be recognized and then proceed around the dais to shake hands with our directors and school board members and superintendents. And then please stay up front after you have received your certificates so we can take a group photo. Are we ready? We're going to start off from Steele High School. The National Hispanic Scholars are Jordan Burton, Melanie Donate, Robert Figueroa. Matthew Gomez. David Hernandez Guzman. Sadie Johnson. And Yasmin Syed. We're going to switch over to Clemens High School now. Our National Hispanic Scholars present from Samuel Clemens are Aubrey Mai, and Lauren Stevens. We also have some National Merit Commended students here tonight from Samuel Clemens. Caitlin Coxon. And Julia Yahimovich. And another National Merit Commended student, Marcus Jones. Once again, congratulations. We're gonna go. We'll have our Steele High School guys. Y'all come on up first. Our Steele students, come on up first. Yes, parents, please come up, take pictures. Okay, come these guys. You guys come on now. All right. Thank you, guys. Congratulations.
Thank you, parents and students, for coming and being honored. We're super proud of you guys. Next, we're going to move to public comments. The Board of Trustees will now hear public comments. In order to provide consistency and fairness to all individuals, public comments will be heard in accordance with Board Policy BED Local and procedures outlined in the Administrative Regulation BED. Comments should be limited to topics such as policies, curriculum, and facilities. Any direct criticism criticism of a specific employee will not be heard during public comments and should be considered separately as provided in board policy. In this context, individuals are cautioned to not identify any employee by name or by any combination of words or descriptions which could identify the employee to another individual. Public comments will be limited to individuals who signed up to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting before the board meeting was called to order. Delegations of more than 5 persons shall appoint 1 person. An individual who signed up to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting may not relinquish their time to another individual. No public comment shall exceed 5 minutes. To ensure compliance with time limitations, a yellow card will be held up by the board secretary at 4 minutes, and a red card will be held up at the 5 minutes. If you have an issue you'd like to discuss with an administrative staff member, complete the form located on the back of the room and place it. All right, our first one we have is Caitlin and Dawn Horton, I believe.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Horton, and I'm a senior at Still High School. I'm here speaking because I made a wrong decision having to do with my FFA scramble heifer. My heifer praise did not make it easy on me trying to halter break her. I've worked with her since September, but she was still not making any progress. In fact, she was only getting worse, making more and more bad habits, and was to the point of being dangerous for myself as well as others in the barn. I requested help from my ag teachers, my brother, and my dad, but even with the help from them, it was not working. I don't admit defeat well, but at this point, I knew I had to do something. So I talked to my breeder, and he offered to help me out with her. I took her to his place and signed the travel form my ag teacher requested that I do. The form stated the heifer would be back in the barn by a specific date, an estimate of how long it would take for the breeder. On the Friday evening before I was to pick her up on Saturday, the breeder called and said he needed an extra week with her. I said okay, and I did not contact the teacher over the weekend, thinking I was respecting their wishes of not wanting to be contacted on the weekends, and informed them on Monday. I had no idea that this was a huge mistake. I was told later in the week that I had broken my contract and that I was kicked out of the barn. I was devastated to hear this, and I had no idea that waiting until Monday to contact them would cost me my spot in the barn, my FFA Scramble Heifer project, and the dream I've had since freshman year of showing her. I have worked so hard to get her. I caught in 5 calf scrambles, which I've been trying to do since freshman year, and it was no easy task. And trying to get her broke and keeping up with all my scramble reports. It was incredibly hard to hear that all of the work I put into my heifer meant nothing, and that after all of that work, I was still not going to get to show her. I've searched throughout the county for a place to put my heifer, and I've come up empty-handed. I've contacted vets, feedlots, feed store, realtors, Agrimart, ag teachers, and the other school districts, cattle raisers associations, horse breeders, and many others. I've not given up, but it's not looking good. I've worked very hard to be where I am today, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished. I'm asking the board to reconsider this decision and give me one more chance, allowing my heifer back into the barn. I will do everything within my power to follow all the rules the ag department has laid out. Agriculture is my passion, and I want to continue to live out my dream of showing my heifer. My goal is to have Praise be the start of my own cattle herd, and if I don't find a place, then I'm going to lose her. So I just ask that you give me a second chance.
Hi, I'm her mom, Dawn Horton. I think y'all can see her passion. I showed for 12 years, so it hurts me to know that my daughter has to give up something, a dream, plus the finance that we have done of a $10,000 heifer, that we then lose all of our money. We are not saying that she didn't do something wrong, but for a student that has never been in the principal's office, that is the president of your FFA, and has dedicated 4 years to this FFA, and has never been written up or anything for one mistake, to be kicked out of the barn and to have her whole senior year wrecked, it's hard. So I'm asking y'all to please give this senior that is an AB honor roll, that does nothing wrong, that represents y'all. I drive miles after miles after miles to take this kid to FFA functions, public speaking, judging, this cow everywhere, that now I have to sit here and see that her dreams are pretty much shattered, which I don't like. So we are asking, please, we have not got anything from the school, so we're asking y'all please to help us give her a second chance at her dream and not shatter something that she can't get back. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kara Latimer.
Good evening, Madam Vice President. I'm a little nervous. I'm not supposed to be here by myself, but here I am. My name is Kara Latimer, and my husband and I own the property directly behind Still High School, and we are in line for the toll road. I sent you that email, and I wanted to put a face and a family to those words. We have been neighbors with you for many years. Our children attended Still High School, and we are very happy to have Still as our neighbors. And it has been stated to me that you guys are maybe considering allowing the private toll road company to purchase a piece of the property at Still High School, which I am adjacent to. I feel that I must strongly urge you to use extreme caution with this company. I had in the beginning determined to work with them, and I have since changed my mind, my husband and I. Though there are many reasons, one of the reasons I would like to cite for you is oversight. For instance, as a landowner, as a property owner, I'm looking for who is ensuring that the statutory obligations of a road are going to take place, that all the procedures are going to be followed to safeguard the students and the community at large. For instance, when the city of Cibolo presented to the AAMPO to put this road on the tip on the master plan for roadways, they stated that they would enter into an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, with the city of Cibolo, the Turnpike Company, and TxDOT. That never occurred. TxDOT does not have oversight or any MOU with those entities. So the city is doing what it wants, and the Turnpike Company is doing what it wants, which if it was all good and in line with what should be done, we wouldn't have had newspaper articles about fraudulent environmental risk assessments. And I can address that specifically by saying these factual statements. The company that did the ERA, the environmental risk assessment, is not licensed to do engineering work in the state of Texas. And this is what we were presented as a city to go by. There is tremendous amount of conflict between Schertz and Cibolo. There is tremendous amount of conflict within Cibolo's city council itself. This is not the way professional, community-driven projects are spearheaded or started or implemented. I would like to warn you to please use as much caution and to verify everything and anything that you are told. I have spent many days, my family has spent many days in anguish, and I have spent many afternoons with landowners like myself as we find each other by looking up CAD numbers, because nobody will produce for us a route, nobody will communicate to us who we are as a community, who will be impacted. That's how we're being treated. And it's sad. Some of these individuals, like myself, are going to lose everything with no communication whatsoever. So, in closing, I would like to strongly urge you to use caution, and that I do not believe that it would be in the best interest of our school district or the education and safety of our children, to enter into any type of agreement with them until they have cleaned up their act and been able to build friendships and bridges between the city of Cibolo, the city of Schertz, and the landowners themselves. I know that's not perfect, but if you have any questions, please ask me, because I've unfortunately learned a lot about this process. And it's bad. It's bad. You all have my email. Feel free to ask me any questions, to contact me anytime. I've been working with my County Commissioner Wolverton and Judge Kutcher and with Mr. Wolf at the AAMPO and everybody and anybody I can to help build community communication about this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for your previous email as well. Next we have down a superintendent update.
Yeah, thank you, Vice President Dreisbeck. And just in way of being brief tonight, I just will present this document to you, and we won't go through or read it, but I just wanted to highlight, I think each month under the superintendent's update, we're going to try to really focus on two things, and one are the areas of focus, and I'll have that as part of the report in December. And then we started a new protocol called Tough Questions, and so we're soliciting questions from our administrative team, from the front line, and then we're trying to make sure that we get the responses to those turned around. So this was in last week's board update. I just wanted to give you a hard copy of it so that you could see, and then we'll try to get a little more systematic about them on a monthly basis moving forward. I thought you might like a hard copy of that set from last week's board meeting, and then like I said, we'll try to get in this 30-day cycle with the tough questions. I think it's a really good protocol. It lets us know what's kind of out there and on people's minds, and then it gets us to talk as a senior leader team and make sure that we've really listened to our front line before we put the responses back out to them. So that's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Gibson. Next, we're going to have a public hearing on...
I hate to kind of do this, but can I just make a comment real quick? Yep. It may just be the wording, Dr. Gibson, but obviously I haven't had a chance to read this whole thing, but the thing that just caught my eye here is that on the TRE election, basically the board considered it, and it was ultimately tabled by the Board of Trustees.
Yeah.
It may be semantics, but we technically didn't table it for another day. We just
from Robert's
didn't pass
rules.
it. Does that make sense? I just want to make sure.
We'll change the word table.
Yeah, just something to I understand it, the intention is to bring it back at some point in time. That just wasn't technically what the board did. But
yep, got it.
Okay, no big deal.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Inman. Next, we're going to have our public hearing on Schools First Financial Accountability Rating System, presented by Ms. Maloney.
And for the students here, as Ms. Maloney does this is where the meeting gets really interesting. So just giving you a heads up.
You're getting ready to be really excited. This is a great presentation. I am happy to present the first rating. By statute, we do a public hearing every time they release these ratings every year, and we do have copies in the back, and I think that Priscilla's going to put those back there if anyone in the public would like to look at those. So what is Schools First? It is a financial integrity rating system of Texas. It's the 16th year that the state of Texas has assessed the financial health of every single school district, public school district in the state, public charters as well. The primary goal of the FIRST system is to this is kind of interesting, to make it very crystal clear about what's going on in the finances so that you'll understand the complexity of the accounting associated with Texas school finance systems. So at the end of this, there'll be a test to see if that is exactly the truth. It's still pretty complicated, but we'll make it as simple as we can. School districts are required to hold a public meeting to publicize the financial report and the rating, and that is what we are doing this evening. And at the conclusion of this, the public is able to come and make comments based on this presentation. The possible ratings are superior, above standard, meets standard, and substandard achievement. Schertz-Cibolo received a superior rating from TEA. We achieved 100 of 100 points in the indicator system. And always a reminder that the ratings are based upon financial data really 2 years back. So these are the ratings from the 16-17 fiscal year. There are 15 indicators that are used in the school's first rating. And that's a breakdown of the public school districts in Texas, with 837 receiving an A, 117 a B, 63 a C, and 5 receiving the F rating. So we're just going to go through these really quickly. Was the audit filed in the timely manner to the Texas Education Agency? Yes, our audit was filed 12/27/2017. In that audit, was there an unmodified opinion? And that's a good thing. Yes, we received an unmodified opinion or a clean audit in auditor's terms. Did the external auditor report any material weaknesses in internal controls? The external auditor reported no material weaknesses, and so that is a yes. Was the district in compliance with the payment term of all debt agreements at fiscal year end? And we were. Bond payments were made in a timely manner, and we had no disclosures in the AFR concerning default or debt agreements. Did we make our timely payments to the TRS system for teacher retirement, the Texas Workforce Commission, and the Internal Revenue Services and any other government agencies? And yes, we made those payments in a timely manner. Was the total unrestricted net asset balance in the government activity column in the state of net assets greater than zero? Yes, it in fact was. The district passes this automatically because of our change in students. We grew at a rate of 7% or more over a 5-year period, but we pass it on the other indicator as well because we're able to back out our accretion interest and our CABs and our pension liability. So that is a positive number for us. Was the number of days of cash on hand and current investments in the general fund for the district sufficient to cover operating expenditures? And this is one of our top 10 questions that we just covered in our workshop last week. The number of days of cash on hand through this measure was 170 days for the 16-17 school year, which equates to about 5 months. Was the measure of current assets to current liabilities ratio for the district sufficient to cover the short-term debt? And yes, in fact, it was 4.5, which is greater than 3. And this is just for your being able to cover all of your liabilities within a year-long period. So it's going to be half of your debt payment, your pension liability, any accounts payable payments, and to meet your payroll. Number 8, was the ratio of long-term liabilities to total assets for the district sufficient to support long-term solvency? Yes, the district, if we weren't a growing district, if our enrollment was not changing over time, we would only have received 2 points for this one because of we do have a significant amount of debt, but our district receives all 10 points because we are fast growing and our change was 14.22%, which is greater than the 7% threshold for student growth. Did the district's general funds equal or exceed expenditures? If not, was the district's number of days of cash on hand greater than or equal to 60 days? The district's general fund revenues exceeded the expenditures by approximately $826,000 in the 16-17 school year. So we did meet that criteria in indicator 9. Was the debt service coverage ratio sufficient to meet the required debt service? And yes, it was. This just indicates that we do have reserves in both the interest and sinking side and in the general operating side to be able to cover our debt service payment during the 16-17 school year. Was the district's administrative cost ratio, we've talked about this quite a bit, equal to or less than the threshold ratio? And yes, it was less than the ratio required for the maximum points. Indicator 12 is, did the district not have a 15% decline in the students to staff ratio over 3 years? Again, we have covered this a little bit in the staff to student, in the student to staff ratio in our top 10. We automatically passed this because of we didn't have any decrease in student enrollment, but our ratio did increase, actually. So it did not decrease. Did the comparison of PEIMS data to like information in the district's AFR result in a total variance of less than 3% of all expenditures by function? Yes, our PEIMS data passed the data quality measures, and it's like, I think we were 0.00004. That's how close, I mean, we didn't have any variance at all. Did the external auditor indicate the AFR was free of any instances of material noncompliance for our grants, contracts, and laws related to local, state, or federal funds? There were no material noncompliance in these areas. This is where they rotate between food service, special education, and our title programs to look at those, make sure we have compliance with federal funds. And did the district not receive an adjusted repayment schedule? Again, this is one of our top 10 questions when we're talking about overpayment from the state from the Foundation School Program. No, no adjusted repayment schedule was received. We are in compliance with the spending formulas. And remember how we talked about that money, just if we are overpaid, it rolls forward and we account for that. So I wanted to call those items to your attention. So the results are 15 out of 15, 100 out of 100, 60 points minimum to pass, and a rating is superior equal A. Coming soon to 2021, we have new indicators coming on. And the funny thing about this is we won't be looking at these until the 22-23 school year. But for the changes in fund balance, we'll be looking at 3 years, and this is the first year. So it does have relevance, and I wanted to bring those to your attention tonight. So we have changes in fund balance over a 3-year period, and we'll be talking to you about those. Your variances and budgeted to actual revenues, 3-year averages. So starting in this school year, we'll be looking at that. We'll taking a deeper dive into debt ratios, looking at enrollment variances. We talked about this a little bit in the top 10, where we have to plug in our numbers to see what the state's going to give us back. Required financial postings on the district website, and we're going to start this during this budget cycle, reporting to the board about discussions on property tax values and the funding lag on those. So wanted to just kind of point those out to you. They seem like a long way away, but they matter right now during this school year because we have to start watching those things. The disclosures in the first are the superintendent's contract, which is posted on our website and is included here in the first report. Our disclosure 2 are the reimbursements received by the superintendent and the board members for fiscal year 16-17. Ms. Seaver, you were not on the board at that time. Everybody else, I believe, is there. No, Mr. Finley is not there either, so that's that. The disclosure 3, we have none to report. It's outside compensation or fees received by the superintendent. Disclosure 4 are gifts received by the executive officer and board members. We have none to report there. Disclosure 5, none to report, are business transactions between school district and board members for fiscal year 16-17 or the 17 fiscal year. And at this time, I will move over here, and if there are any questions or comments from either the audience or the board.
Yes, board members, any questions, comments?
So Paige, while we're waiting for audience members to line up, I'll make a couple of comments.
It was very exciting, though.
Yeah. Sometimes I think these get a little rote, and we can kind of start taking for granted that we hit 15 out of 15, and that's exactly 100%. And those items, I had a really strong reminder last week working with Paige on the phone calls with Moody's and Fitch, and it strikes me that if you didn't have 15 out of 15, that you might be answering questions if you had 13 out of 15 or if you had 12. And we didn't have any questions whatsoever mentioned about our first. And I think They actually cited that, tough times in the state and tough times, period, but because of strong financial management that they're going to keep our ratings the same. So what that translates to is our credit rating is good, and we'll sell bonds the day after tomorrow, I believe, and we should do well. The problem is that if your credit rating changes or is downgraded just prior to a sale, that can hurt your sale. So we try to have the best credit rating we can going into that sale to achieve the best percentage that we can for repayment. So congratulations to you for holding that rating solid from both Moody's and Fitch.
Great job, Ms. Maloney, and your team on all the work that I know that goes into it, even on the ratings. Hearing about y'all's phone call, even with them. Any public comments?
I think Ashley has a question about administrative cost ratio.
Ashley.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Maloney. Okay, next we're going to do our review of trustee visibility and commitment within the district, the community, and with other governmental entities during the previous month. Mr. Pivito?
Okay, real briefly, which I can never be brief, but anyway, Watchdog, I did my Watchdog thing at Green Valley Elementary. It's always a big day, a lot of fun. I was also fortunate to do a high-level rounding at Wilder Intermediate School, and I have one high-level rounding at Watts Elementary coming up on Thursday. I was able to attend the Foundation Casino night. It was a very good night. We had a really good crowd, and I know a lot of the administrators were there, and we do appreciate y'all coming and supporting us. We really do. I think you guys had a pretty good time, Mr. Linhoff. And was just saying. And I went out to the Ag Fair. It was like we got the 40-year flood that day. I mean, it was just really a nightmare. So that was kind of a bad decision on my part. But the kids were being taken care of. That's the main thing. And I did also have an opportunity to read at Rose Garden Elementary School in Miss Pratt's second grade class. Being second graders, they could help me with the big words, which was good. And then was able to attend a field day at Green Valley Elementary School on the first really cold day that we've had. And it was the day after Halloween, which I thought was a really good idea to have first graders out doing field day on the day after Halloween. It was great. It was cold, but it was great. And then was able to attend. Why are we doing things when the coldest weather? At Veterans Day this evening at Clemens High School, it was a very nice ceremony. I really appreciate them being out there and carrying forward with it. It was a wonderful ceremony. I thought, if a group of men could be in the forest in Bastogne in December and January of 44 and 45, then I can stand 30 minutes out on the track and, so anyway, honor to the veterans, so that's it. Thank you.
I got to do a couple of coin tosses, once with Judge Kushner from Guadalupe County and once with Sergeant Del Rio, who is a retiree, Marine Corps retiree who's a double amputee. It was kind of neat for him to walk out there and do the coin toss. I did some high-level rounding in fine arts, in counseling. I got to go to Dobie to sub for somebody. And I got to go to Pascal and Pascal, sorry. I did a Northeast Partnership luncheon. I always like to joke with Mayor Daley when he's there that and throw the name Selma into when I introduce myself. He wasn't there, so I didn't do it. We had a Communities and Schools Board meeting this morning. I also got to do the Schertz Veterans Day ceremony, and the Junior ROTC, Clemens Junior ROTC was out there for that one, And it was a little cold there on Monday morning also. And the Tri-County Luncheon, Chamber Luncheon today.
I was able to go to the veteran ceremony at Wilder last week. That was a really good ceremony. They always do a really good one. I did the NHS induction at Clemens. I was glad to see a lot of our students get inducted. Did a reading over at Rose Garden. I know I want to call it Garden Ridge. At Rose Garden, they were really cute, and not to be outdone, I heard Robert Westbrook take stickers, so I took stickers too. I took 2 stickers for everyone.
Yeah, I heard about that too when I read it Rose Garden. They said Mr. Westbrook brought stickers. Well, you know, I didn't know.
I don't think the teacher's going to appreciate candy. Did a couple of roundings, enjoyed those. Went to the Ag Fair, the CAC, and I do a couple of committees in the town. I do the library board as well as the historical preservation committee. And what is kind of neat right now is we have students who wrote essays in conjunction with the historical preservation committee. They do a yearly essay about Schertz, or they have the kids write essays. Right now, over at and they already actually did it, some of our students were recognized for their essays. And what I thought was kind of cute is I actually got a chance to sit and judge some of those essays. Some of them were about the library, so I told the library committee that some of the essays were about the library, and they were kind of tickled about that. But one child wrote about Ruth Tenure. She has been on their board for probably, I think, 35, 40 years. And they wrote about her, and she is responsible for why we have a library. And so I told her about that, and she thought that was really sweet. So it kind of came full circle for her. She was just tickled that they wrote an essay about her. She's like, really? I was like, yeah. So that's what I did this month.
And I've attended a few football games, coin tosses, and also had the opportunity to go to one of the large fundraisers for our ag students for this area, that when they do make the Guadalupe County Livestock Show sale back in January, they purchase quite a bit of our SCUC kids' animals. And because Guadalupe County is pretty large, and there's a lot of Navarro-Seguin children from that area, and so there's some specific groups that purchase just our SCUC area students, and so I was able to attend that fundraiser. And again, along with football games, coin tosses, and things like that. So thank you, trustees, for that. Question, push on, or we need a recess? Board, any questions? We have one down. Keep going, Mr. Pivito? You want to recess or not? Move on. No, I'm gonna let the students. Yeah, okay. Let's keep going, and the girls, I just want to thank y'all for attending. Y'all are welcome to stay, or you may step down to go study. So, yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank y'all very much.
We'll give you another round of applause.
Yes. All right, we're moving on to new business, and our first will be a report on the 2018-2019 District Strategic Plan Scorecard, Priority 2, Goal 2.1, presented by Dr. Edwards and Ms. Cannon.
Good evening, Vice President Dreisbeck, Dr. Gibson, and members of the board. Tonight we're going to go over our Priority 2 with our strategic scorecard. And I think we're ready to begin. So as you know, our Priority 2 as well, we had the Priority 1 report the last 2 months. And our priorities reports are based on and anchored really in our mission, vision, values, and our belief statements. And when it comes to Priority 2, as we do with Priority 1, we really start with that strategic plan and moving Priority 2 into our district improvement plan, creating a district scorecard with that, and then the expectation is also to include Priority 2 in the campus improvement plans, and then they also create their scorecards. So in priority 2, we have 4 questions we ask ourselves. What do our employees need in order to do their jobs effectively? How will we listen and learn from our employees? How will we know if our employees are fully on board with the vision of the district? And how will we continuously improve? So looking at priority 2, we have one goal, and that's to annually increase the percentage of participants who respond in the top 3 of the 7 scoring bands in workforce satisfaction on the SCUC annual survey. So we're looking for those positive comments in the 3 different areas. So this last year, the data, we take the survey in the spring of each year, typically at the end of March, first part of April. And this last year, in 2018, we were overall for satisfaction at a 69%, which is the same as we were in the previous school year. In the benchmark schools, these are nationwide schools that take this very same survey. When you look at their overall satisfaction, they were at 67%. And then, as you know, we recently were recognized as a top workplace, and we get the data from the top workplace. Those are businesses and schools that also use this same survey. And so looking at the businesses and schools, they were at 74%. So when you break down the data overall, these are the statements that had the highest ratings from the survey. There was a new question on it this year, which is the second one. SCUC is dedicated to diversity and inclusiveness. I was pretty happy to see that we came in at 79% on that statement for the first year. And what's interesting is last year when we did a lot of listening and learning with our staff members, even though this has been a strength for us under the My Manager questions, if you look at those, you'll notice that they had slipped a little bit this last year, still pretty high, but they had slipped. And on our data from the listening and learning opportunities we took across the district, that actually came up as a theme of, you know, we don't want that to not get paid attention to because we don't want it to continue to go down. So I was happy to see after us listening to that this next year, that data did come back up. Under our lowest areas from the survey, there was 11 because there's 2 that tied at 72%, but these are the lowest areas. You'll see the benefits came in the very lowest, and then there's actually that second question was new again this year, which I think is a great question to ask our staff members. Meetings at SCUC make good use of my time, and I think at 53%, that would be one that we'd want to take some focus on. So just looking across the board there, benefits and pay have always been probably on the lower end. Senior managers is another one. I know as a cabinet team, we're really trying to take a look at because it's really never gone up. It's really stayed flat the last three years that we've taken the survey. So under our strategic plan, we actually, yes.
Sorry, just sorry to cut you off there, but that top question, my benefits package, do we create that line, or is that something that's given to us and whoever does these surveys?
It's given to us.
I mean, and we can't change that, right? I think we talked about that.
We can't, because then we could not benchmark with the other companies if we changed it.
Okay, so you can't reword it to other school districts in our immediate area or something like that? I mean,
no, we could not change the questions.
Okay, that's what I thought.
We could, in our middle of the year survey, we could ask that
on
question.
the quick questionnaire.
On our quick questionnaire, and just then compare that to this, to just see if that variance in the wording.
Because you'd have to conclude, they still had low ratings compared to other surrounding districts, then they're either giving some benefits that we don't know about, that our employees know about, or they just simply don't know where we compare with others. I mean,
yeah, and one of the probably challenges of participating in a program or protocol that includes for-profit. I mean, the good part is that it's hard to compete oftentimes with for-profit, so that kind of pushes us, out of our comfort zone. But then you get questions like this where, 85% of the financial gain of any market increase will be turned around and given to health insurance, directly to so we're competing against that kind of a thing. But Linda, Ms. Trimmer brings up a good question. Maybe we want to flesh that out in that quick one and just say, if asked this way, what's the response? And
right.
Just see if that changes.
And I think some of that does say in this industry, but there is some communication that we're trying to do with benefits, because the first thing I think our staff will think of is the health insurance. But we do have a whole slew of a benefits package that we offer our staff members that they seem pretty content with. It's typically goes back to what is our health care plan, and how good is that compared to others. And honestly, I don't know that they do know what others are, in our surrounding area, and that we do have those comparison rates that we could share with staff members to show what other school districts are able to offer.
Can I guess, and I don't want to belabor this because I know this isn't the whole point of this, but just, again, we talked about the other day with the budget meetings, and if we're tight on funds, I mean, we're making a concerted, intentional effort to pay our employees more than the competition. I mean, that's what we're doing. And by doing so, we're having to sacrifice in other areas. That's just price tag of taking care of your employees. But it's one of those things where, likewise, you would then like to get some favorable feedback on, thanks for taking care of us to an extent, because that's what we're doing. And if we're not getting that, then there's something missing somewhere. I mean, that's why we're paying people more than the other districts are paying them.
Correct. And we also, through staff advisory, I have focused on making sure that they understand there's other benefits, to be addressed besides just health care. We talked at the last budget meeting about the leave policy and how we pay out upon resignation and retirement for some leave. And so we're making sure staff members are aware of that, along with the move into self-funded, and how the last set of data came in to look very positive towards us moving to self-funded, and how down the line that might be something we can address because we've gone self-funded.
Yeah, and I understand the psychology too. If this were 100%, then nobody's going to vote for that, because then they won't think we'll give them a pay raise next year, right? I mean, if life's good. So I think it's one of those, somehow, it seems like this number gets worse every year, right?
Yes.
And I just wonder why, and I understand it, no one's ever happy with what they're getting paid, but it's like, comparatively speaking, we're paying not only well, but very well compared to our competitors. And you would somehow like to see the staff at least understand that.
Correct.
Yeah, I watched a Frontline the other night on all of the teacher protests nationwide, and if any of our staff is watching that and then being asked this question about that same time, they're going to say no, because the profession, they're going to generalize it to the whole profession nationwide, and I think there may be some of that effect in this, because as those started happening, in all of the states, even though their pay is much lower than our teachers, it still kind of gets
well, and we
teachers
do
riled
have
up,
that
and I
comparison data for the nationwide that take this survey. And in pay, we're about where they are with that, but we're not with benefits. We're significantly below both of our benchmarks, which would be the top workplaces in the San Antonio area, but is also the nationwide schools that take this survey.
And I can see, I guess we don't change this, but I can see how somebody thinking benefits package really isn't compensation. That's all the other stuff. Yeah. I don't know if that comes across somewhat too.
So on that clarification memo, can we put some of that in there without biasing the results, or is that what you have to kind of do?
Right. The benefits are really any additional things that we offer our staff members, such as the health care, dental, vision, cancer.
Can you put that in the introductory memo, I guess?
Yes. We do have it through a recruiting memo, and I also distribute that during staff advisories as well.
The memo that you send when you send the survey.
Oh, yes.
That's what I'm saying. And so will the company say, no, that's too much bias?
No, we can create our own email for that.
So that may get a little more explanation up front when we're asking this question. This is what we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, 'cause I noticed that third question, my pay is fair for the work I do, that number is also decreasing.
Yeah.
Significantly. I mean, I would just say maybe not so much that's a danger sign for folks that are going to potentially leave teaching or leave the school business. I mean, it's one of those things where if that number just keeps dropping, I know we have a good retention ratio, so that kind of tells a story.
We do.
But those numbers just seem to be getting lower and lower.
Well, I've been on both sides. I've been in the education world, and I've also been in the private business world, and there's good and bad in every organization as far as salaries and benefits. A teacher going into a classroom, typically their salary is going to be higher than most entry-level positions in most situations, other than if you're you're an ultra professional, many degreed, highly technical situation. Teacher has a lot more, I think, responsibility than a lot of those entry-level positions that do. So certainly our are deserving of the salary they get. I think it's the benefits, because our hands are tied. We can't offer bonuses. We can't do it. Private businesses, for-profit businesses can do that, and they do it. And there's a lot of competition in that, and I've been on that side of it too. Districts in other states can offer bonuses, can do things that the state of Texas just does not allow us to do. And I don't know how you answer that. I don't know how you solve it.
And it's all staff members that do take this survey, so
Yeah,
it's not just the teachers.
No, I understand, and it's just,
Yeah.
Everybody would like for it to be better, but it's a case, like Gary said, it's like, a dollar will only go so far, but, we're working on it, I hope.
And we also have the
they know
TASB salary study that we're doing this year that we should have some information by the end of February, first part of March on as well for the pay.
Well, I think, leave and things like that, we probably are a lot more liberal than a lot of your for-profit industries, businesses, as far as what we offer in the state combined. So anyway, thank you.
So on our Priority 2 strategic plan, this is the district strategic plan. We have some key annual strategic actions that we, at our last Team 1, took a look at and scored for where we are in the progress of those. And so if you look at the first one, to complete a professional development needs assessment for instructional and operational staff, I'm actually working with Ms. Kovacs on this. And so prior to us planning the SCUCU next year and the professional development plan for the following year, I believe the plan is to sometime in January put out a needs assessment so that we can start gearing their needs to what the professional development needs are for our staff members. The second one, we've done a lot of work around this, engaging our leaders to implement effective meetings. You'll notice that one question, the new question at 53%, that's the reason why we felt like that was an area of focus. Of aligned communication to avoid the we, they. Some of that came out of, that's where the tough questions come from, and helping them, our leaders be able to identify some key talking points when they do get asked the questions, leader rounding, and then professional performance conversations. So leaders in this district are getting training on these areas to be able to take that back and move forward with their staff. And then the last is looking at implementing a process for driving improvement in staff attendance. So those are areas that we are focusing on, and obviously there's still some work to be done in those all three of those actually. And then this is something we've dedicated ourselves to, is that we will use a protocol for rollout of our staff survey data. So every campus and department takes their own data and then looks at the survey. We ask for input from our staff members. That drives the action that goes on our scorecards to get to our continuous improvement. So things that we're doing this year to keep us on target with Priority 2. You all have participated and have mentioned the high-level roundings going on in the fall and spring with Dr. Gibson. That will end with a feedback loop, what we use as a stoplight chart to get the feedback back out to staff members on what we learned during that time frame. Staff advisory going out fall and spring. We use the SWOT analysis to get feedback from staff members here, and the quick questionnaire, which Dr. Gibson was just mentioning, as far as trying to get kind of a mid-year check on where we are with especially those lowest areas of concern. And then he passed out to you the tough questions memo, trying to help our staff members and our leaders be able to have talking points on some of the big key things that are driving some questions throughout the district. And then we just completed our district services survey, and once we get the results back from that, every campus and every department participates with Team 1 in a high-speed rounding where we work on actions and have them help us identify if we're working on the right actions. And then we're looking at the retention rate of staff. We've always looked at the teacher retention rate, but we're going to move that into looking at all staff members and the retention rate to make sure that we're keeping all staff involved and wanting to be a part of SCUC. And then our staff attendance rates themselves, just making sure that we're taking a look at, and they're actually on priority reports for our campuses and departments as far as looking at their attendance within their campus or department. Any questions?
Ms. Cannon, there was a slide that had like 3 different things on there. One of the part was about communication, and this one right here. Yes, thank you. And I meant to, if we skipped over the correspondence part of the agenda, which was fine, but I was going to bring it up then. But I noticed on that social media, www.url, whatever it is, Twitter world, we have a lot of staff members who do use that, I think, very effectively in communicating things that are going on in their school and their campus. We have, I know Mr. Saunders and Ms. Shirazadi at Clemens, and Ms. Cervantes at Steele, Ms. Pratt at Rose Garden. I know there's a teacher at Green Valley Elementary with Dr. Burkholder that do communicate with faculty and things like that, and they do ongoing communications about things that are going on, and I've just noticed a real uptick in that. I think it's a really effective way of communicating what's going on. People see those things, and I do. I'm very interested in what it is, what I'm seeing, and I just think that's very, to me, that's aligned communication, and there's a lot of leadership out there, I think, that's not really, I don't think they're doing it to show that. I think they're doing it to communicate, and I just think it's a really excellent tool, and I think they're doing a very good job with it. So I just wanted to add that part.
Okay.
Any other questions? Statements? Thank you, Ms. Cannon. Next, we're going to have a November construction update by Mr. Pruski. I don't see Mr. Mosley's here.
Pardon me, even Mr. Linhoff is on that Twitter world doing things, so appreciate that.
Good evening. This evening we will have the construction update for Bond 2016. Tonight's update will focus on Clemens High School. So going through, we are moving along. It's still a 2020 projected completion date around March, April timeframe. We are making some significant gains here. Just the high level areas there with the event center. Moving forward, that's been done. The auditorium, we're looking forward to the completion of the auditorium, final punch out and interior work, and having that in December of this year. And then also looking at interior renovations to be complete in those areas shown there in the teacher's lounge, teacher bullpen, ALE, and the new classrooms. Moving forward with the interior renovations also in the old auditorium and practice gym. So that work is going on there. That work is the next big rock, would be in August of 19. So we have a ways to go for there, and you'll see that with the pictures. And then the west stair enclosure, construction has begun on that, and you'll see through the pictures as well. We've had some Mother Nature events, as previously noted by Mr. Pivito, that has affected some of our outdoor work. So again, the event center to the left, the gym to the right, the fine arts segment. And then inside the maintenance drive area, what you see here right smack dab in the middle, this should be where the bridge, or will be where the bridge will be connecting. As you can see, the footing out there is a little treacherous right now, so due to the inclement weather that we've had. So coming around, this is the backside of the auditorium. So here's your, I can never say that word right, but it's where the rigging is and that's the high areas for the auditorium. And then the inside. So this gives you a view from on the left, from standing in the back, looking forward to the stage, and then from the stage looking up towards the back. So you can see the layout of that auditorium. And like I said, very close to being complete. Some views of the railing systems there, the steps, and the seats. So very happy with that product. Here you have the, on the left, the stage riggings. You can see the high areas there. And on the right, this would be the black box with the rigging for the lighting up above there. So that's coming along nicely as well. Then we kind of get inside where it's not as nice. So but it will be. We're looking here in renovated areas. This would be in the B wing. This was what was the boys and girls locker room. And it will become new combi labs and science prep rooms, as well as a few classrooms there. So just giving you a little framework of where we were in the building. Here as well, you can kind of see it's under construction. So this is another area for new classrooms and computer labs, and this will be in the B wing. So now we're across that hallway. And then moving forward, the upstairs B wing, the classrooms here being expected to be completed in December of 2018. Okay, all right, he says yes. Interior finish out there, and this will be our HOSA and combi labs with some HOSA preps and the forensic science, as you can see in there, as well as the the justice classroom, sorry. So then moving forward here, you can also see evidence of our work going on. So this is more renovated areas in the B wing for the computer labs and department offices, as well as a new IDF room. And then here that gives you a view of what will eventually be the new courtyard. Then in the back over here, this is the old gym. So working forward, and you can see the evidence of the trenching going on with all the water and all the fun there. So what's going on inside the old gym? Well, they've performed the pier work, and now we're working on the suspended slab. Again, this will be the culinary arts area. That'll be the anchor, lifetime nutrition and wellness classrooms. So you can kind of see from the inside the work going on in there, and then eventually this becoming the 2-story learning spaces. And then outside on the west, this is a enclosed stairway that will take you basically from, if you could picture, this is the B wing, so this structure will come all the way across this west side and be an enclosed structure to allow circulation to open up. So this is where, if you've heard of the congested hallway there by ROTC and B wing and S wing, down here is S, this is B, and you'll have R, the ROTC wing. So this is what we're all eagerly anticipating. This looks to be done around the late January, early February timeframe. The weather really knocked us back on that one. So, and then that is basically it in a nutshell for now as to what's going on. A lot of interior work, and then we're trying to work around Mother Nature on the outside. Any questions?
Any question? Wayne, I have one question. I noticed this week, it would be one of the first pictures, but a question I have is the overhang is done now for the auditorium, which is beautiful with the rock and so probably the outside part. But that doesn't go all the way around. Am I correct? Does it end?
To which part? This?
Like the outside. Go back one more. Yes. So.
Oh, this
because
canopy?
I know kids walk. Right now, they're walking on that one little area.
In the front?
Yeah, because they'll take, instead of going around the front, they go around the back to get to where they're going. Of course, it's going to be different when everything's opened up.
Right.
I mean, that's going to be totally different. But it stops because of all the all the maintenance stuff right there, correct?
Right. That's
So it only
what
goes
we
so far.
affectionately call maintenance drive. Now that will be improved with some flat work and work through there, as well as have the bridge and the walkway on the lower
that's gonna
level
help.
as well. So
I was going to say, it's really nice. I know it looks really nice, the rock and the cover, and it looks really nice.
Well, thank you.
Wayne, say again how much complete we are.
Roughly, I think on that second page, we're about 83%.
Okay, thanks.
It's just going to take a while for that remaining 17.
I have a quick question. It does look really good, and I know what you're going to say. The roads are not yours, just the school. So is there any plan, though, do you know of, the roads in front of the school, they've just gotten worse and worse?
Belleville?
Yes, we're going to have this beautiful school and these horrible roads. So is there do you know of any plan? There's giant potholes out there.
At this time, I cannot answer that with a yes. I do not know of a plan at this time. If I were to venture, which I'm scared to, but I think later on, once we're complete here, you might see some movement there, because then you won't have the heavy traffic, the trucks and the machinery
Right.
going up.
And I know
down.
the roads aren't yours. I just didn't know if maybe we were working with the city and just saying, hey, when this is all said and done, we've got these areas here that probably aren't very safe.
Yeah, and not to speak for the city, but I'm fairly confident that would probably be the plan in their house.
Well, Wayne, I mean, I know that not too long ago, the city did a fairly comprehensive street plan and prioritized and all that. I know, like that whole stretch there on Schertz Parkway, there was a disaster for a while there too, and that got fixed. So, I mean, do they ever communicate that with you? Because I know they do have a master plan when it comes to the roads. And
Yes, it's just the question about El Bell. I don't have an answer for exactly particular to El Bell Road. That's that one. But, you know, with our one-on-ones and with our monthly meetings, we can ask.
I'm not trying to add roads to your duties.
We'll just say it was brought up at a board meeting.
Correct. Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Pruski, but I see you are down for the next one as well. So, St. McClemens High School Band Hall renovations, final design.
Okay. Yes. So that's why I had those papers. So, Francisco, can you turn those on just for a second, the lights, please? Thank you. Okay, so at the August 21st, 2018 board meeting, the board approved the conceptual design for Samuel Clemens Band Hall renovations and additions. This project will utilize projected savings from the Bond 2016 Clemens project. SCUC staff, along with Marmon Mock Architects and AGCM, have been working on the final design towards this band hall renovation. The band hall renovation and addition project will address an area of Samuel Clemens that was not originally included in the original scope of work. Okay, so in the original scope of work for Samuel Clemens additions and renovations. Marmon Mock, along with staff, have been working towards the final design, and we're prepared to show you as a discussion item this evening the status and the progress that we have made regarding this. As a reminder, the design will include renovations to the existing band hall, increasing both storage and efficiency of building use, as well as providing additional space for the growing program. So going forward then, if I could. So just to show in the crosshatch here in the gold, that's the existing band hall area, and this is the new auditorium. So we're talking the area right across Maintenance Drive. And the bold area here is basically the addition to the band hall, and that addition we'll go into here shortly. So a layout again as a fine arts area, you have band and music, the art rooms, and theater. So kind of in a centralized area of what we did also with athletics and moving them over here and having a centralized athletic area, as well as with CTE, with the J building, and with culinary and HOSA in those areas here. So following that methodology, so moving into the design then. So this is the main floor, and we'll have a blow up of that is here shortly. But the rose area here would be the addition to the band hall. And what we were doing and taxed with on this area is to renovate the existing space to be more efficient and useful for the fine arts programs in band itself, as well as orchestra. So just want to remind everybody, upstairs on the second floor, we had those individual rehearsal rooms and practice rooms, and that creates a bit of an issue because you have to have the stairwell to get up there, and we were grandfathered with the stairwell to have those. But if we were to remove those stairwells, we could open up that band hall 1, so to speak, and make it larger downstairs. So then what would that do with those practice rooms? Well, they would come down and you'd see that is what in aqua where they are dispersed about then. So instead of all of them being upstairs, they're scattered strategically, I should say, placed, not scattered, but placed strategically there into those practice rooms. So up at the top, we'll start at the top here. So you have the office The big areas, I want to jump into that real quick. What we heard when we were working with design is the need for storage. Storage, there are things stored in areas that were taking up useful spaces, and we feel bringing those practice rooms down and then having these extra storerooms added, especially into this additional space, which basically is from this line at the bottom, as you see here, this one bay, so to speak, half of this block is the addition. And what we did is we turned the orientation of that choir room, the existing choir room that was in here, turned it 90 degrees. And now with the addition, we can add storage, have a third practice hall, as well as some practice rooms in each side of this building here. So you can see the breakdown of office spaces, practice rooms, and the actual band halls, so to speak, and rehearsal halls there. So rehearsal hall 1, 2, and 3 coming down on that vertical axis. So with the project scope and objectives, we're looking at a little over 2,000 square foot addition to the existing band hall, the instrument and uniform storage and support spaces, having the exterior storage building. So we're looking at that as also moving forward. This red, forgot about that. This is a additional storage building on the outside of the building for props and any other items that need to be out of the band hall for seasonal use or whatnot. But we're looking forward into putting that into as an alternate to the design and to the bid process. Demolishing inaccessible mezzanine area, that's the practice rooms that are upstairs, and gain and improve function of the main rehearsal hall space. Again, that was the removal of the stairwells and having that building be able, I think that gave us 6 feet on each side of the main rehearsal hall. And then renovation of the existing interior areas and finishings, including the ceilings, floors, and doors. All practice rooms will now be accessible by locating on the first floor. That helps with supervision. Instead of splitting and having the students, they're all on one floor instead of on 2 floors. The new and additional instrument storage to meet the program needs for those programs, and then technology, mechanical, electrical, and lighting upgrades throughout the building. As a reminder, we're going in there, we're trying to bring it back up to what we did, what we're doing inside Clemens as well. The next one, to address deficiencies in the current program support spaces, including instrument, uniform, and general storage in the existing facility. And then these proposed additions and renovations will help the band program be better aligned with similar band programs in the San Antonio area. Updated layout will aid in the functionality of the building, band and orchestra, and will have separate dedicated practice and storage spaces, improving the loading and unloading for program events. The timeline of construction, we're looking at phase 1. That's the existing band hall work to be done April of 2019 to August of 2019. And then phase 2, that's the addition going into October of 2019. So it's going to try to be a lot of work in the summertime, but there will be some overlay into actually when the start of school happens. The schedule moving forward, just to show the process steps here. The design phase is where we're at now. We are now working towards final design. As you see there, the discussion item is the third yellow bar, dropping down into November. So that date is a week off because we're not here next week, so it's this 13th. Then moving forward, final design coming to the board for action in December. And then you can see all the work that needs to happen there before we actually go out and to bid and to award in February. So following it, November, December, we got a big milestone in January with the solicitation discussion, receiving the bids in late January, evaluating of the bids, and then hopefully bring in a favorable proposal to the board in February, mid-February there at the February board meeting. And then you can see the completion steps there with the notice to proceed in March, and then actually doing the work starting in April, and then completing the whole project into October. So with that, I kind of wanted to bring y'all up and show you what we're doing there. And want to go back to this page just to kind of show, if I can, the work that was done in bringing these storerooms into play for the areas that they'll support, as well as the storage rooms here, and then the flow of the band hall as well, coming from the courtyard through the center. We're still keeping that. One change that will happen to the existing band hall is that if you've been in there, there's an exit that comes right through this corridor that comes out. Well, what we did is we moved it, instead of a double door exit, we're taking this corridor for the practice rooms and then having the exit doors separated by the rehearsal halls. So we still have the access to come out of each one of those rooms, just not the width of those doubles. So this was a very good capture here to bring those rooms and place them in that corridor and rework those halls there. And I'll stop right there and see if there's any questions.
Mr. Pruski, was there any way to chisel out, or have you found any way to give the color guard some room to do their thing, do what they need to do?
Color guard was included.
Yes, it's the.
I knew that was going to happen. Sorry, Mike.
Oh, there we go. If you look right there, almost where your pointer is, that 150 square foot, that is dedicated for color guard storage right there, which is actually a little bit larger than the color guard storage room at Steele High School.
Okay. What about a place for dressing, costume-wise, and that sort of thing?
There's not a dedicated space. That would be really a huge amount of space. We discussed that. That would be a huge amount of square footage that, you know, would be nice when you used it, but realistically it's, 12 or 15 hours a year that is used. And so our money we felt was better spent in some of these other areas. There are areas for them, there's restrooms are available there, and other areas that we can block off and make temporarily. There's a really large instrument storage room and a large uniform storage room that, for temporarily for those situations that we can use. That's what every band hall that I know of uses for situations like that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anybody else have questions?
So again, we will be bringing final design next month for approval, and then the solicitation process will begin from there, as the schedule showed on that last page. I believe it's also in your packet.
Yes.
Okay. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Pruski.
Yeah, and Ms. Dreisbeck, on the next item, just to make sure everybody that may be observing that wasn't here the other night, Ms. Cannon, you did have the opportunity the other night to make this report as per our protocol, so it's listed on here again, but I'll give you the permission to just hit the highlights since you had a chance to go through it. And are there any changes, and then summarize it?
Okay.
Go as brief as you want to.
All right.
Okay.
So there are no changes from the last budget workshop where this was presented, and mainly it's due to the fact that we're having more, we have an increase in the number of identified special education students and also their needs, and we're requesting additional staff, both at the campus level and district level, to meet those needs.
Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Cannon. Our next on our new business is our local district update policy, CW local, naming facilities. I asked Dr. Gibson to just kind of give a summary of the policy committee meeting and things like that.
Yeah, thank you, Vice President Dreisbeck. And initially there was a request by a trustee to initiate the process, which sent the policy to the board policy committee. That draft came back to the board, and then the trustee that made the initial request actually had resigned, and so we thought that it might stop there, but then there was some additional discussion about it that warranted it to go back to the policy committee, And the draft that's before you tonight is the revised draft that came out of that policy committee meeting. As a reminder, this is the policy that the board retains the authority to name buildings and portions of buildings, and I believe we determined in the policy committee it's changed 6 times in the last 12 years. This would be the 7th.
Any discussion?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Dave, do you mind if I add something?
Go ahead,
real
man.
quick? Just
Go
so,
ahead.
So we know we're talking about the same thing. I thought, since the other 2 trustees that were on that committee aren't here tonight, I guess I'll speak to this. I thought that very last portion, which is page 30, I thought the last thing we closed up the policy meeting with, that we were going to make those 4 pieces apply to not only existing campus or district facility, but any part of a facility. Remember we talked about that, just so that it applies to everything?
Yes, I do.
And I think we were going to insert those words there somewhere. But.
So look at the statement right before number 1. So is that where it would be embedded, or is it not embedded?
Yeah, I thought that's...
so say it again if you don't mind while I'm looking at that.
Just off memory, of something to the effect that the board will not consider naming, renaming, or dedicating an existing campus, district facility, or part of a campus or facility.
Portion.
Oh, any portion.
Or any portion, yeah, something like that. Just to
correct.
clarify, if you want to name a wing or what have you.
So consider that as part of this draft, and we'll...
Yeah, I mean, that was my understanding. You recall that, right?
Yeah.
And I believe Mr. Westbrook mentioned that to me as well, so.
Yeah. That's what the draft would look like before we just start discussing it, I guess.
Yeah, it was, Ms. Drimmen. And back on page 29, I think that language was embedded in the title of it. But then I think at the end of the meeting, you're right, you had recommended that we restate it there just for clarity.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
Okay. That's it for me.
Ms. Seaver, you had a question?
No, every time this comes to us, will a new committee be formed, or do we form a committee, a naming committee, and that is our committee going forward for several years? How does that work?
Yeah, the way the policy states is that committees will be put together by the board president, I'm kind of paraphrasing, and then dissolved when they've fulfilled their duty. So that would be at the pleasure of the board president.
Mr. Pivito?
Okay, well, I try, there's no way I can keep this short, I'm sorry. There's just been a history with this particular policy, and I'm trying to understand how it is that every time we go to name something, a building or whatever after anybody, we have to change the policy. This occurred when we had Cibolo Valley Elementary School, and Mr. Dahlford's name came up for that, and all of a sudden we have to change the policy. Has there really been that many times where a trustee's name has been put forth for a building in this school district? I've been around here since 1975, and I cannot recall one time that that's happened in that period of time. So I would like to ask somebody, tell me, where did this language come from and why is it here? I didn't agree with the policy change we made when we were naming Cibolo Valley. We changed it to elementary schools have to be named after a street or an area, and junior highs have to be named after, in high schools, and they have to be dead for 50 years before you can even consider them. But where does this language come from?
Well, I can't really speak to the specific language, but Mr. Pivito, from my perspective, having been here through any number of namings, my intention, insofar as being involved here, is to reduce or at least eliminate to the best at all possible any kind of conflict or animosity in the community. And you've seen it with several different situations come up over the years where it gets fairly heated over this topic for whatever reason. I don't know why. It brings out the worst in people to some extent and various other things. So from my perspective, you're trying to cut down on any kind of potential undue influence or improper conduct or whatever you want to call it. So for example, prior to this, there's nothing to stop a board from naming a building after itself or after a particular trustee, and I think hopefully most of us would agree that's probably not something we should do. So you're just trying to eliminate the variables that are going to create controversy where you don't really need any, as opposed to trying to exclude any one particular person or making this personal, I guess. That's my take on it.
Well, again, I don't, it hasn't happened. You know, this came up, you know, we were talking about naming the ROTC portion of the building at Steele for a former trustee, Scott Harrod. Is that the cause of this? Is that the reason why we have this policy now? There's a reason for it. I mean, there's got to be a reason why we have this policy all of a sudden. It didn't just come out of nowhere. A board member who is no longer on the board decided we had to name buildings after people who were dead.
Yeah, so I agree with that. I think that's how this started.
And I don't think, you know, we had the discussion, and I don't think that real discussion ever went anywhere. And then all of a sudden it's back again? Where's this coming from? I think in the interest of transparency, which I hear that word a lot, I'd like to know.
So having been on the committee, my understanding is, yes, a trustee, unbeknownst to I think the rest of us, decided he thought it would be best to have a policy where you couldn't name a facility after someone who's still alive, I guess is the way to put it. And that's morphed into one thing after another. Then we had a couple committee meetings, and my understanding was there was a consensus that the board shouldn't be naming buildings after themselves. And that's how I got to the wording that it is now. I didn't start off that way, but I think people realize that's probably not a unwise thing to do. And you know, so we're not, the policy is what it is at this point. But
I agree it's not a wise thing to do to name buildings after board members, sitting board members or otherwise.
So that's what you got.
But that's not, it's never happened. My question is this: why now? Why is this policy here now? There has got to be an ulterior motive for this. It didn't just come out of nowhere. If somebody's trying to shut something down, somebody's trying to hide behind a policy instead of standing up and having to take a vote. I'd rather take a vote. People will know how each of us feel. But no, we're going to hide behind a policy. I think it's wrong, because what you're doing is you're eliminating a whole lot of things.
I think I wasn't at the policy meeting, but I also think some of it, they looked at what other districts have and looked at that kind of thing too, from my understanding. So I wasn't present at that meeting, but just to see what other districts around us do as well.
Right, so I guess being the new one on the board, I don't know what's going on here, but I will say, sorry, I will say that I did send some stuff to Robert where I asked that we consider a committee. I think you mentioned that you sat on a naming committee before. I still think that's a really good idea to have a subcommittee that considers that and brings the pros and cons to the board before we actually decide on that, because we don't really get to have any of these discussions ourselves. I'm finding out we don't really get to talk about a lot of things. And so I really felt that, and so that was my suggestion to Robert, is that we look at other, and we do follow, I guess, NEISD. Their policy is very, very similar. Theirs was more comprehensive. I don't know if this was added to it or not, but they did have a subcommittee, and I think that's a good idea.
So it can either be considered as is or go back to policy committee, or be asked to be brought back to the board as a whole for policy discussion.
Because right now it's just a discussion item, so it would go on.
Correct.
We know we have
yeah,
to.
I'll just say over the years. I mean, I've seen, Dee Dee, we've had, 6 different versions of this over the period? Over 12 years? Okay, and I've been a part of the board getting blasted for naming a facility a particular thing, and I've been a part of getting blasted for not naming a facility after somebody. And Dave, I kind of agree with you too. I mean, the very first 5 things on the front page, I think they're way too restrictive. You can only name an elementary after certain types of situations, and that takes discretion out of the hands of the school board, which I don't necessarily think is a good thing. But my understanding is, generally speaking, the whole idea of this policy as written is to just try to eliminate some of that personal animosity that gets driven sometimes with this whole topic, and to cut down on some of that and limit the parameters, and then that way it's just, you're cutting back on the opportunity for the board, I guess, to do things that are going to make people upset. But I agree with you. So philosophically, we can go down the road of full discretion. The board can literally just do what it wants to do, or you put a lot of restrictions in place. And I don't know which way is necessarily the right thing, but somewhere in between. But that's kind of the two choices we have.
Well, the original request about naming person having to be expired, so to speak, came up before Mr. Harrod's name was brought up, was sent in by Mr. Ricks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was born at 11:19 p.m. at night, but it wasn't last night.
Well, I think one thing.
So there's something going on that, I think is. I think there's a personal vendetta is what I think it is, and that's all I'm going to say. I think it's a ridiculous policy, so we can move on.
I disagree that there's a personal agenda,
Yeah,
personally.
So let me just say that to the extent that I agree, Dave, I think I'm very much in favor of so that kind of thing doesn't happen again. The whole idea here, from my perspective, is just to eliminate the potential for bad conduct, I guess you can call it. And I'm all in favor of, once someone's name's been nominated or we started that ball rolling, you shouldn't then be allowed to change the policy to either help that name get selected or help it not get selected. I mean, I got a problem with that. So I think that's kind of what you're talking about, too.
And that's what's happening now.
You try to rewrite the policy to eliminate somebody for whatever reason, or maybe it appears that's what you're doing, even if you're not. So I don't know if we need language in here. Or so. I agree we shouldn't have a situation where somebody's name comes forward and then all of a sudden we start changing the policy to fit what your preconceived ideas of what the conclusion should be. I mean, are you okay with that if we somehow put language in here to stop that from happening? That seems to have happened several times.
I would just say if a name is forwarded, then it ought to be dealt with. It ought to be voted on. Something needs to be done out in the open, and not hide behind a policy to keep someone from having to make a decision on how they feel about it. Now, I think that's what's happening here, among other things, but that's neither here nor there, but well, it is actually, but that's it for me. We can move on.
Not to beat the dead horse. So I'm personally conceptually okay with those final four things that we, basically to name something after a trustee, the trustee has to be separated for at least 2 years, or you can't name a facility after a current employee, not including any particular names. I mean, I'm perfectly okay with that. I think that's a good thing.
So this is a discussion item that can either go on, send it back to committee. If there needs to be changes, it can be voted upon next month. That's where it stands at the moment.
Well, I would say just the other two committee members are not here, but they were, I guess, in a sense, in favor of moving this forward the way it's written.
Yes.
And with that change we just talked about earlier, I guess. But.
Yeah.
I would think the only thing you can do is bring it to a vote next month.
Okay, we'll put that on the agenda for next month.
If for some reason something happens next month, then it goes back to the policy committee, I guess.
Okay, next item, discussion of the 86th legislative session letter to Texas state legislators regarding SCUCISD significant legislative concerns, presented by Dr. Gibson.
Yeah, and so we're distributing a draft of some proposed language, and Mr. Westbrook and Ms. Dreisbeck and I, at our weekly meeting, talked about, instead of sending one message from the team of 8 and another message maybe from the Great Conversations team, and maybe even some other messages that go from the district, to really try to focus on a unified voice. And so this, again, is just submitted as first draft to our state legislators from the team of 8 and the Great Conversations team. So there's that. We probably need to get it finalized, I would definitely think, by December the 6th, because we're going to share it with other local elected officials. Then in this conversation kind of morphed over to just remind trustees that February the 26th is the TASB, is that right? 26? Yeah, 26th is the TASB 86th. That's where I got confused. Legislative session. And so many of y'all have attended that. There's a thing in the morning, and then in the afternoon you head to the Capitol and have your meetings. This would be what we would take with us to the Capitol, I guess is the bottom line. So at the very latest, we would want to have this message ready by February the 26th at the very latest. As last year, I'll drive anybody that wants to go in the district vehicle, and then we'll, I think Ed will bring some of the GCT members up a little bit later, and then we can go together as a team and visit our representatives and senators.
Sounds good. Next is our procurement of goods and services presented by Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Ms. Vice President, members of the board, and Dr. Gibson. This month we have one solicitation, and that is for our child nutrition. We're rebidding our high school kitchen renovation project at Clemens. We're hoping that the way we've got it set up this time with a base bid and 2 alternates, that our budget will be enough to get everything done that we want done, give us some more flexibility. We brought this before the board previously. It's for an expansion that's needed due to student growth at Clemens High School.
And what's the funding source, Mr. Rivera?
It's all federal money.
Okay.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Rivera. All right, so our board consideration for consensus at our next meeting, I have down as the high school band renovations final design, our new positions for the rest of the remainder of the year, our policy city of local naming facilities, our letter to Texas state legislators, and our Clemens High School kitchen renovation project.
Let me kind of insert here. Dr. Gibson, do we have a calendar when we actually typically look at policies, or is that just kind of dependent upon when TASB comes forward with their updates?
Typically, it's just when the updates come. Now, we've done a policy audit every 4 or 5 years since I've arrived.
Okay, and then at the request of any particular trustee, then we look at a particular policy if that's relevant.
Correct. I mean, any trustee
Okay,
can ask for any local policy to be placed on the agenda at any time.
Yeah. Okay, this one.
Yeah, and this one typically will not be part of updates or
because that's a local.
analysis.
We leave it up to you to do what you want to do.
That's right. It's
okay.
A completely local policy. TASB won't recommend to you what to say in it.
Sure. Okay. Just asking.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
thanks.
a good question.
Well, I guess it's not a shock that I'm asking that CW local not be part of the consent agenda.
Sure. Okay, we'll pull that.
All right.
I know that might speed the meeting up, but
All right, and moving on to consent items. Are there any items that need to be pulled on the consent agenda? Anybody? If not, do I have a motion?
I move the Board of Trustees approve the consent agenda items A through E as presented.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Passes 5-0.
We have 30 minutes if we can get back to the conference room. And we would be meeting back here. Did they get the picture stuff out of the way? Can somebody check if you don't mind? And we can work with almost any space as opposed to going outside.
We're going to adjourn into
Yeah.
closed session. The board will now adjourn into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551-072 and 551-074. Closed session at 8:40. We are back in open session. Request for board action employment of contractual personnel presented by Linda Cannon.
Yes, I'm requesting approval of the employment list as presented in closed session on the replacement positions for the 2018-19 school year.
Do I have a motion?
I move the Board of Trustees approve the employment list as presented of contractual personnel for 2018-2019 school year.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Passes 5-0. Review of board agenda planning calendar, request for future action, or future meetings. Mr. Perkins?
Hold on, I'm trying something.
No, that's okay.
It's not going to happen. We have one chamber meeting next month. That's the Tri-County Chamber. The other meetings don't, the Northeast
Aren't meeting.
and the chamber don't meet on in December. Yes, I think that's about it.
We have our board workshop Thursday, November 29th, the last one at 6 p.m. And then on Tuesday, December 18th, I believe, is our next board meeting, regular scheduled board meeting. Priscilla did a great job of sending out a reminder about pictures. Save it also at the bottom if you caught it. Mr. Westbrook and I talked about last Friday, we have the Cibolo parade, Christmas parade, but we need to know before she leaves to go on break, and that depends on what vehicle we're using on how many people want to be in it. And on that one, by the way, you get to throw candy. So that's a fun one, isn't it, Mr. Inman? We did it last year. Yes, and bring lots of candy if you're in that one. So we just need to let Priscilla know that by Friday. Anything else?
We mentioned the December the 6th, that would be the
Oh, yes,
board
sorry.
president, and we're trying to keep that less than a quorum, all the organizations are. And
Ms. Seaver?
I think you volunteered to take Ms. Drasbeck's place, and then it's
I'm traveling.
Perkins, I believe. And then that same night, we'll have the combined community advisory committee, so if anybody, we need to know if somebody want to attend for that, because we try to keep that less than a quorum too. We try not to post that agenda.
Will that be live streamed? No. Or recorded?
We hadn't
No.
talked about it. It could,
Okay, I was
but
just
it could
wondering,
be.
'cause
The
sometimes we do our
demographer
meeting.
report and all that. I think it might be a good idea. We haven't done that before
Especially
now.
since sometimes we do that when we can't have a quorum, but
Yeah, I
we-
think that would be a good idea. This would be the first time to do that. And because it's the demographer and it's all that stuff. So I think
all the
it'd be
committees
good for
together.
that information to be out there.
Okay.
The foundation
yes.
prize patrol for their
yeah.
grants is scheduled preliminary at December 7th. That's
Okay.
preliminary.
Awesome.
It will only be held if it's snowing.
Well, you're close on today. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, we adjourned 8:43.